Welcome to the Fashionista Life podcast, brought to you by True Fashionistas, where you can shop, sell, and look fabulous. I'm your host, Jennifer Johnson. If you find yourself here, it may be that you're looking for courage, clarity, or confidence in some part of your life. Or maybe you just want to be entertained, and that's great as well. Let's get started. Today, we welcome into the studio Dave Geislinger. Now, I have known Dave my entire life, haven't I, Dave? We grew up together and we grew up in the same small town. We went to the same school. We graduated from the same class. However, even though I'm doing air quotes now, I knew Dave. I didn't really know Dave. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, probably.
I preface that with, I really want to talk to you about your story. So Dave has a riveting story, and it is surrounding mental health. And it's such an important thing right now, as it always has been, but it's kind of become, it's more in the forefront of everyone's mind. We're all thinking about it, right? So what made you realize that there was something wrong? Let's talk about your story. Let's start there.
So I realized later in life that I have pretty much lived with depression my whole life. Didn't really realize it till I started to spiral down in my 30s to a pretty dark place. And I knew something was going on, but didn't really know what. And one night it came to a head and I attempted suicide. And at that point is when I knew I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
So I checked myself into a emergency room where I was able to get into an outpatient program that I did for 8 weeks, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, just like a regular job. We did group therapy. We did one-on-one therapy. We looked at meds. We did different projects. They taught us how to cope with different things. It was a very intensive program, and that changed my life by doing that.
So here you are, successful. And growing up, did you ever have an inkling that something was wrong growing up? Was that ever something that you thought about or you felt off when we were growing up? Was that even a thought?
I always knew I was treated different than the rest of my brothers and sisters. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I am the youngest of the 5. There is 2 years in between each one of my brothers and sisters, and then 7 years between me and my older brother.
And to preface this, he has 5 siblings. I have 6. Well, no, you have 5. You're the 6th or you're the 5th?
I'm the 5th.
And so I have 6 in my family. We were born in farm country, Catholic farm country, right?
Right.
So
we were a small family, kind of.
Right. We kind of were. There were like families of 10 and 12. So,
right.
So you felt like you were treated a little bit differently growing up. Do you think because you were the youngest, or?
I did think it was because I was the youngest. I didn't really know why. Until I found out that also later in life is I am the product of rape between my parents. My dad was a terrible alcoholic, and he came home drunk one night. They were done having kids, and he basically raped my mom.
Wow.
And that night I was conceived. It took a lot of soul searching to figure this all out, but basically when I came along, I ruined her perfect family. She had her 2 boys, she had her 2 girls. Everything was done, and then I came along, and I don't think my mom ever really realized she was doing it, but I think I don't want to say despised me, but always held it against me that I was there. So it was actually through some of my therapy that I kind of made this realization on what happened, why I was treated differently. My dad growing up kind of spoiled me. So I think he did that because he felt bad for what had happened.
Right.
It was a few years after that happened that my dad went in for treatment and never drank again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So isn't this interesting? So many things are rooted in our childhood that we don't really realize until later in life when we start having issues. And then you start seeing somebody and it starts coming to the surface and you start realizing that that was the root of everything else that happened.
right.
What was that moment like for you when you realized that, when you were in therapy and that all came out? What went through your mind? Because that had to be a pretty jaw-dropping, oh my God moment, I would imagine.
It definitely was. I mean, when that realization happened, a light bulb came on like that. I'm like, this all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
This puts everything together. And by doing that and finding out the core of why you feel the way you do,
Mm-hmm.
allows you to work on that and
Mm-hmm.
forgive. It took me a long time to work on forgiving my mother for the things that she had done to me and growing up and stuff, and how I felt about her. And I mean, it took work for me to
Sure.
work on forgiving her.
So when you realized this, your father had already passed away?
He did. Yep.
Okay. So you were having these hard conversations with your mom?
Not
Or how?
really.
No?
I didn't do that till after I worked on forgiving her.
Okay. Wow. That took a lot to realize that you maybe needed to forgive her first before you talked to her.
Yeah. Our relationship was kind of toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to have a clear head, not have the anxiety I got from talking to her and spending time with her. I needed to work on that myself
Mm-hmm.
first before I could let her into that. When I say it took a long time to do this, I'm talking like 2 years.
Wow.
From when I started actively trying to forgive her to when I came to peace with that, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of praying, lots of soul searching, lots of late nights thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But what a relief once I got that through my head. I mean, it was like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders.
How you felt after you made that realization and after you got this all out of you, how that felt.
Very much like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. This is something I lived with my whole life. Didn't realize how much it was weighing me down and how much I buried because of that.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing how something in your childhood, again, I keep going back to that, but how that can change your future, how that can change you as a person. And you said you were in your 30s when you realized this, when it all kind of started going down.
Yep. That's when I started to get into my deeper depression stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, I mean, my suicide attempt was in March of 2014. So it was, not too long ago. So.
Right. And now I say we are because we are the same age. We are in our late 40s. Right. And so you've had some time between then and now to work on you and process everything. How does the rest of your family know any of this, or how has that?
I have just actually recently and in the process of starting to work with them. Mm-hmm. After my dad passed away, my siblings began to fight over different things, and it kind of drove us all apart. Mm-hmm. When that happened, when our siblings started really fighting, I had just gone through my divorce with the mm-hmm. mom of my children, and I separated myself from that. I didn't need any more of that going on in my life.
Right.
I mean, and this was all things that led up to a deeper depression. I mean, this was all stuff I dealt with, and I didn't deal with it correctly. I just buried those emotions and moved on and acted like I was happy and everything was okay in my life. And if you'd see me out, you would never know what I was dealing with then. I was always the life of the party. I always had a smile on my face. I was joking around, having fun, but inside I was tore up.
Right. You were definitely burying it and making it look like you had the white picket fence.
Yep.
And a lot of people do that. That's how we cope.
Right.
That's how we get through those tough times if we haven't faced the demons head on.
Right.
You know, definitely. Your story is just amazing that you've come this far and realized all of this. And I know every day is a new day, and every day you're processing something, right?
Yes.
I mean,
you're constantly in, you know, I'll live with depression my entire life, but now I have tools that I can use to cope with tough situations. I've learned how much talking helps about it. I mean, even if it's right now, talking to you about this is therapy for me.
Right.
Just talking about your story, you get some therapy out of that. There's something to getting your story out that that you don't realize until you actually do it. And I'll tell you, the first time I talked about it, I was scared. I mean,
of course you were.
I didn't know what the reaction would be.
So. It takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to step outside of that and have that conversation with anybody, a stranger, much less someone that you know, right?
Right. Yep.
But it feels darn good once you take that first step.
It does. And the feedback I got from the first time sharing my story was unbelievable. I shared my story the very first time on a suicide survivor Facebook page, hoping that you know, there's lots of people on there still dealing with some really dark depression and thinking about taking their lives. And I thought if I could show them that it can get better, that it might help somebody. And I got literally hundreds of inboxes and direct messages, messages on the page itself about how that story helped them. So, and I actually, one person on that page was one night was put on there that they wanted to take their life that night. So I started to talk to them. I messaged them, asked them what's going on, you know, and I shared my story with them. We were online for 7 hours that night.
Wow.
And it was through the night. I didn't realize they were in England. And the next day that person went to the hospital, checked themselves in.
Wow.
And went through the same steps I did. And we stay in touch, and they are still alive to this day. So I know that getting your story out there can do difference in people's lives.
Right. And you know, I know you're a man of faith.
I am.
So I have to tell you that I feel like there was divine intervention there. You know,
Yes.
I feel like things, and I've shared my story with you, but I feel like things happen to people for a purpose.
Yep.
A purpose greater than us.
I agree.
And I'm actually getting chills, but a purpose greater than us. And you're out there, you save somebody. Right?
Yeah. I mean, they saved themselves, but I helped them see that it could get better.
There's always a a message in our mess.
Yes.
Is what I've heard several times, and it can't be truer that we can take our mess and turn it into a message for somebody and perhaps help save a life like you did, or many lives, because that's not going to be the last one, unfortunately.
Hopefully not.
You know, won't be. Is your closet overflowing? Or maybe your kids' closets are as well. Or maybe you want to redecorate your home. If you're wondering what to do with all that stuff that you've accumulated, bring it all to True Fashionistas or ship it to them for free and they'll sell your unwanted items for you. They take away all the hassle by doing all the work, and all you have to do is sit back and collect your money. You can reach out to them online at truefashionistas.com, come into the store, or check them out on Facebook or Instagram, and that is truefashionistas.com. Welcome back, friends. You are listening to the Fashionista Life podcast, and today we have my dear friend Dave Geislinger in studio with us, and we are talking about mental health. And he shared his riveting story, his moving story with all of us. And I don't know about all of our listeners, but I definitely got goosebumps. And we were just talking before the break about how this is divine intervention. And, you know, we're put on this earth to do greater things for others. But I have a question. So before you went and, you know, went and got help, what was your thought process, you know, growing up or as you got older, of someone who had mental health issues and then realizing that you were the one that needed help? What, you know, because we all know that there's a stigma.
Yep.
There always has been a stigma around someone who has mental health issues. And that mental health issues that can range from depression to many different things.
Yes. Growing up, I was taught that people that had mental health issues like that were crazy. I remember my parents flat out saying things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't take a lot of stock in looking at mental health, or, you know, I always thought, well, I'm not crazy. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there is a huge stigma around mental health. And that is one thing I am trying to, with sharing my story, talking about it, is to break.
Mm-hmm.
People that have mental health issues aren't crazy. They're dealing with a sickness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more people out there with mental health issues than what anybody even realizes. Everybody deals with some type of mental health,
Right.
Or works on their mental health at
Right.
some point in their life.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, right?
I mean, anxiety alone is crippling for a lot of people.
Yep.
For sure.
There is, and as soon as you start talking about it, you're either labeled crazy or
Mm-hmm.
you're attention seeking, or that was one of my biggest fears about sharing my story, is how many people
Mm-hmm.
are going to say, oh man, he's looking for attention.
Right.
I didn't get that at all. And maybe it's happened behind my back, but as far as anybody ever, I never got an inkling of that.
Good.
You know, people don't fake mental health. They fake being happy.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
The mental health is what they try to hide. You know, if they're struggling with their mental health, they hide it. So no matter what, if somebody's reaching out telling you that they're depressed or that they're having thoughts, instead of labeling them, we need to talk to them and take them seriously. I hear so many times after a suicide that, oh, I wished we'd have known. You know, I wished they'd have let us know. And I guarantee there were signs there somewhere. At some point, they reached out somehow. It might have been subtle, and you might have just blew it off, but we need to take those things seriously.
How do you think we could get that education out there? How do you think we could let people know that, hey, if you know, it's like, okay, if you're having a stroke, look for these 3 signs.
Mm-hmm.
What could we do, in your opinion, as someone going through this, that people could look for?
We can talk about it, and the people that have gone through it can talk about it. People that haven't dealt with mental health issues like I have don't understand. Mm-hmm. So I've actually spoke to a lot of families of people that have dealt with mental health or suicide, and, you know, told them my story and how I was feeling and what was going on inside of me and how I was acting then. And they realized that, oh, they were doing the same type of thing. But they didn't realize that was, it was an issue, or as big of an issue as what they thought. So I think and that's another part of sharing my stories. Just talking about it gets it out there so that people are more aware of what people are going through that are dealing with mental health issues. And, it's one way to look at a good side of this is I got a gift to help people that I have been through it. And I can relate to them, so I can openly talk to them, tell them, that I felt this way and this is how I dealt with it. And what I did to turn my life around. So, talking about it is number one, getting it out there, getting the message out there. Just letting people know, and not hiding the subject or turning away from it.
Right. Because I mean, I know, I can think in my head of all these people that we've known that, gosh, they didn't seem like there was anything wrong. They seemed happy. They seemed, like they had their shit together. Pardon me, but they had their stuff together. It doesn't add up. But they were hiding it. It was behind the scenes. Spouses didn't even know. And so getting the word out is great. And now you have started a Facebook page in hopes of creating a 501(c)(3). So let's talk about that. So you're taking your story and your journey, and this is a way that we can add a microphone to it, if you will, to get that word out.
Yes. So I started a Facebook group. It's a private group called Struggles, Success, and Faith, Stories of Real Life. And
we'll drop that in the podcast notes so that people can find that.
Awesome. And what it is it's a faith-based community that's a safe place for people to share their stories, to be that first platform for them to get their story out. And it's a place where we build people up. There is no negativity ever allowed.
Wonderful.
It will be taken down immediately. But it is all about positivity, about building that person up next to you. We do I am a man of faith, as you said before. So I share a Bible verse of the day on there. One of my friends through church does it through a video recording. So I share his on there every day.
And I check it out. It's great. Our audience should definitely go on there and join.
It's definitely in the beginning stages of this. So I'm, working on content, and actually the guy from church and I are talking about possibly doing our own podcast on the website.
Awesome.
So we're looking at different things, but I definitely want to grow the page and do something to share positivity in this negative world.
And from that, you want to do eventually a 501(c)(3). What do you want to do with that? What's your goal with that?
Just to help people. God put me through a lot in my life, and I think he did it to give me the ability to help people. So now I need to take that ability and run with it. So I would like to do, I'm also a cancer survivor.
And I want to talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so people dealing with cancer, mental health, I don't have the guidelines set up quite yet of how I want to figure out who we help and what kind of target, I don't want to say target audience, but you want to set that groundwork up. And I'm in the very beginning stages of that yet, trying to figure out how I want to set up the nonprofit to help people, whether it be give them money so they can take off work to go into a mental health facility.
Right. That's not covered. I mean, that's the crazy part. Now, I know I'm getting off topic, but I was actually just speaking with somebody the other day, and there's such a shortage of psychologists and psychiatrists that there are hospitals closing down their mental health wards because they can't staff them. Right. And then what? Right.
Right. And so the program I went through, there's usually a waiting list to get in there. And I was fortunate that they thought my situation was bad enough. They rushed me out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people don't make it to the end of that waiting list.
Right.
So it's a big problem that there's just not enough room to help all these people. So
right.
There's many different things I want to try to do with the nonprofit. I've also been asked to do some speaking and stuff, so I'd like to do that as well. But I'm again in the very beginning stages of all of that.
But that will help your healing.
It will, absolutely.
Because like we said, that you're doing something greater with what you've been given.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No.
I mean, I've shared my stories numerous times now throughout the years, and every time it gets better. I feel better because of it. And I mean, we're still quite a few years after my attempt had happened, but I'm still healing from it, and I probably always will be.
Right. So now I have a question. So how long ago were you diagnosed with cancer, and how did all of that play into depression and your mental health state? Because I mean, it could go either way when someone is diagnosed with cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
With how you're feeling about it.
Right. I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Wow.
In April of 2021. And I'll be honest, that was one of my first concerns was, how am I going to handle this mentally? Between my suicide attempt and my cancers, when I found God and really built a relationship with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so glad that I did that, because that helped me so much through my cancer journey.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't worry about dying. I had faith in God's plan for me, that whatever it was, I had to trust it. So I was able to stay really positive throughout the whole journey on that. But having that gone through what I went through as far as my therapy and helping my mental health and building my mental health, that helped me get through my cancer journey as well.
Mm-hmm.
I used the tools and techniques that they taught me to deal with this. I looked at the brighter side of everything coming out of this. You know, a lot of people get down when they're diagnosed with cancer, and I started looking at everything. What good can come out of this bad stuff?
Mm-hmm. Positivity.
And I used that. I shared my journey on Facebook throughout my stay in the hospital.
You did.
That helped me as well. I mean, I got lots of comments and people praying for me, and therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very open about my cancer journey as well. I'm working on helping some people through their cancer journey right now that you and I went to school with, and that are dealing with colon cancer as well. And I've kind of been there with a couple of them throughout their whole process. We've had a couple people in our class that have passed away, or just under our class as well, from the same thing. And I tell you, that was hardest on my mental health.
I bet it was. I know how I felt. It was it hits home. When it hits home, then we all pay attention.
And
a little bit more.
When our friend Craig passed away, that one was a struggle, because I was going through chemo, basically in the same steps he had taken, and he passed away, and here I am going, well, I think I'm next, you know?
Yeah.
My ex-wife, Sarah, and her husband came to a lot of my appointments with me. And she had to keep telling me, that's not your story. That is not your story. That's Craig's. Your story is going to be different. And until I believed that, you know, I struggled with it, but I did get to a point of believing that and talking myself through that, and that made my journey better. And, you know, I am, as of right now, cancer-free.
Yay.
So I have a procedure coming up on March 8th that they're going to look at a spot right now.
And it's going to be fine. It's nothing.
It's biopsied as non-cancerous, but I'll probably have to have some type of surgery to get it removed. But they found it on my colonoscopy on New Year's Eve, so I knew the day before.
And we're actually going to dedicate a whole podcast talking about your cancer journey in one of our upcoming podcasts, because I feel like how you navigated your cancer journey with your faith and how that was all interwoven is a podcast in and of itself that I want to take time to do a deeper dive into and to talk to you, because I know that could help a lot of people as well.
Yeah. And I could not imagine going through something like that without faith. I don't know how I would have got through it. I think I'd have really, really struggled. But having that reassurance that God's got my back, I can't control those things, and I'm trusting in his plan, made it for me to breeze through that. I mean, you know, as far as I wasn't worried about dying. I wasn't worried about I was worried about my kids growing up in a world without me, you know, but I had to have faith that God was going to take care of them as well. So, so yeah, I mean, it was very, very important for me to have faith through that.
And he had a bigger plan for you. Yep. And that is bringing other people up and sharing your story. And you need to say you're saving people. That was your plan.
He definitely must have something in store for me.
He does.
In 2021 and 2022, I went through 6 different things that should have or could have killed me. Through my cancer treatments, they found out I had a stroke at one point. I had a reaction to my chemo that I went in anaphylactic shock. And that was the day I thought I was actually I could die. So I've gone through a lot, and I'm here.
You're here.
Normal yet.
You're here. You're normal, and you're
so helping people. I know there's something he's got great in store for me, and honestly, doing the Facebook page and the nonprofit, I was hearing his message for a long time about those things, and I kept kind of not listening really.
So he started screaming at you.
Yeah, his message got so loud, I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I'm like, okay, I have to move forward with this. I have to start doing the things he's guiding me to do here. So, and then I started the page. I only started that page about a month ago, if even that. So I mean,
remember
it's new, but we're slowly growing membership, and I hope it at one point explodes, and
it will.
I'm hoping everybody shares the page and invites their friends and has their friends invite their friends. So.
Absolutely. That's how it will grow. Well, in closing, what if you were to leave our listeners with one nugget, what would that nugget of wisdom be?
If you're going through some tough times, you don't have to go through them alone. There are lots of people out there. You can call me, message me on Facebook, look me up, however you can get a hold of me. I'll talk to anybody. You can't go through it alone. I tried. You can't. You need help. So talk it through with somebody, seek help. Anybody, anything, go to the doctor and tell them what you're dealing with. Make it known how serious it is to them, because it can consume your life to a point where you want to take your own life, or you can turn it around and lead such a great life that I have been since my turnaround. It can get so much better. You're not in this forever.
Right. Well, those are powerful words. Definitely. And you've been through a lot, and I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your deeply personal story, because you know it's going to help someone. It's going to affect someone.
Yeah, I hope so.
And that is your purpose. That's your purpose. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And thank you everyone for joining us today and every week here on the Fashionista Life, brought to you by True Fashionistas. If you want a deeper dive, head to my website, thefashionistalife.com. Sign up for my weekly newsletter where we take a deeper dive each week into a new topic. Have a fabulous day.